Hello, and welcome to the live broadcast. We are here at the Family Tree Counseling offices in Indianapolis, and I'm fortunate enough to be the host tonight for the Church for the Narcissistically Abused live broadcast. And we talk about a number of things related to folks who are struggling and in need of recovery and help. I might want to put my glasses on so I can see some. These are so the
I've got questions there.
postings.
Just saying hi to you so far, Jerry.
Okay. And I want those who are going to be watching tonight to send me questions. I've got a few things to talk about tonight. And I hope you will send some questions. Your questions are always tough ones for me. And there's Mark, who's running around helping me.
Video
He's a
bombed you.
wingman tonight, which will help me, so I don't have to focus on so many things at once, and can focus on talking to people. And I think Renda is going to be helping me tonight. I also wanted to tell you that in the next couple of weeks, when the next program comes on live at 8 o'clock on Tuesday, in 2 weeks, Renda will be. I didn't get the questions from Facebook.
Yeah, I'll get it for you.
You're
Jerry.
getting those. Okay. That Renda will be joining and hosting the show at that time. I will tell you, you can follow Mark and Renda on the Family Tree Life Coaches channel and on YouTube. You can follow me on the Jerry Wise Relationship Systems channel on YouTube. I also am on Facebook too, and Twitter and all those, Instagram, those kind of places. You can follow me also if you wanted to be on my email address list with Jerry, www.jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com, and you can get a hold of me that way. Also, my email address is also on all my videos. So I'm thrilled to be here tonight and feel very fortunate to be asked to host the show this evening. Let me talk about kind of the recovery approach that I see for those who have been narcissistically abused, or those who have had difficulties with in their relationships with narcissists, or have gotten out of narcissistic relationships. I do want to strongly encourage you to find the book Healing from a Narcissistic Relationship, A Caretaker's Guide to Recovery, Empowerment, and Transformation by Marjalis Fjellstad, F-J-E-L-S-T-A-D, or Fjellstad. I think you would find that book an excellent resource. She has a couple of books that are very dynamic and very good. She's a marriage and family therapist who has been in recovery from her own narcissistic relationships, as I am also. I've got a question from EE. How does poverty and economic issues create dysfunctional families? Well, I think when you talk about dysfunctional families, does economic circumstances or do and by the way, hi Renda, I see she's sending in some things. How does poverty and economic issues create dysfunctional families? It's kind of a chicken and the egg dynamic, I believe. I think poverty and severe economic strain certainly causes a lot of intense, highly charged anxiety for families and enmeshment, which intensifies that when you have poverty or economic struggles. And then also, I believe a lack of self-differentiation, enmeshment, triangles, dis-ease or unhealth then causes problems with career, job, monies, and creates poverty and economic issues. So I don't know that it's either or. I'm not, my pay grade's not that high to be able to answer those questions as well. But I believe both of those dynamics impact dysfunctional families, either from the lack of self to the stress and anxiety that creates a lot of unhealthy dynamics in poverty-stricken families and economic problems that people experience. I think that's a very. I think society and its own systemic enmeshment, immaturity, lack of selfness in society creates a lot of economic problems, poverty, and it affects us politically, economically, spiritually, because we are all connected, and we are all connected emotionally in our emotional fields, and society is connected as well. Society is just one big dysfunctional family. And I believe that that affects us, and our lack of self-differentiation affects society. So society affects us, and we affect society, depending upon how we function as a self. And that's not I'm not a genius, that's not my idea. That was Murray Bowen's description of how society is impacted by a lack of self-differentiation, and then how society impacts individuals. I hope that helps a little, EE. Maybe not the final question on all that, but I believe that's how I understand it. I wanted to mention that in terms of recovering from narcissistic abuse, there's that stage 1 of coming out of denial, stage 2, learning about narcissistic dynamics and narcissistic patterns, how they as narcissists function in those patterns, and how we as narcissistic participants in that relationship create and enable those dynamics in our own life. And then thirdly, the learning to be a self, which is kind of stage 3. When I tend to help best in that third stage of self-differentiation and learning to find a self. And that's kind of my expertise. There may be some other videos and people who teach about coming out of denial and also narcissistic dynamics and patterns. I think Mark and Rinda do a great job in talking about those narcissistic dynamics and patterns, and coming out of denial as well. And then I try to work on that third stage of learning to be a self, which is that process of learning to find a sense of self, be a self, and begin to gain self-differentiation, which is also another word for maturity, lack of naivety, less enmeshment, more being a self while being connecting with others. Someone has asked about resources for abandonment issues. Mark has a book on abandonment, I believe, and on and abandonment issues. You can go to his website at Family Tree and find that and resources for that and how to obtain that. Also, there's the journey
From
From-
abandonment to healing.
from Abandonment to
Susan
Healing by
Anderson.
Susan Anderson, which is an excellent book on abandonment. I also have some videos on abandonment. Mark does as well. And I talk about the importance of reducing our self-abandonment as a healing for our abandonment issues and our fear of abandonment. I also believe that the self-differentiation books and family systems books can be helpful in reducing abandonment and rejection and fear of abandonment and fear of rejection, such as Jenny Brown's book, Growing Yourself Up, and Andrea Shera's book, Your Mindful Compass, and then Harriet Lerner's books. And I think those are very good resources. Family Systems Readings, Extraordinary Relationships by Roberta Gilbert is a good book for healing from abandonment. How do we strengthen our sense of self so that abandonment is less of an issue? And I think that's very important. When will Jerry's book come out? Well, that's a very good question, and probably produces a lot of guilt and shame for me when somebody asks that. That's overdue, and I have been working on reducing my schedule and the clients that I see so that I can do more from a workshop perspective and doing workshops on Zoom. I am planning to do a workshop soon, and I will be sending that out to all of my mailing list and letting Mark and Rinda know and letting all of our fans know about that workshop. I've got lots of workshop material that I can bring out and utilize where people can ask questions, and I can also share a lot of information on those. Also, that will free me up and I will have more time to do some writing. I have done already a bunch of writing already. It is putting it in a form that I can then put into a book, and I've even thought about doing even a short book on that stage 3 of self-differentiation, healing and wholeness, and finding a sense of self when you're recovering from abuse of all kinds, and codependency, and healing from codependency. So yes, that is something I believe that would be important. I even have someone who would be willing to help me to who wants to be financially supportive of that as well. So it's a matter of getting my schedule down where I can spend more time doing that. I'm sorry, what's that third word?
Upped.
Oh, okay. Oh, upped your self-care. I got it. When you upped your self-care, it was evident. Keep it up and walk the walk. Oh, yes, it is more evident when we up our self-care. It really does affect us in a positive way, and self-care is so important. And I think that's where I've been focusing on what do I want to do, what would I like to do to help people as well as to take care of me too. And believe it or not, there's some real resistance that goes on when we up our self-care. The when I don't take care of myself, believe it or not, some people find that a positive thing because I end up enabling and being more codependent or being more less focusing on me or my self care. When I increase my self care, you'd be surprised how that can step on other people's toes. And they may be more resistant to that. And I do know that, and I just did see Taming the Outer Child. That's an excellent book. I might mention that as well. And so, right, when we up our self care, that is a good thing for us, but it may change the system in a negative way for other people. Just like when you reduce your codependency, when you start to self-differentiate, that perturbs the system. It can create some difficulties within the system when you start taking care of yourself. And that's one of the things I talk about with people before they begin to do that. Let's see the potholes and the difficulties we're going to run into when we start becoming healthy. Because we want to be aware of those and see those down the road coming. Here's a question from JD. The more insight and clarity I gain into my narcissistic childhood, I get more angry and depressed. How can I direct these feelings? And I think you're right. First of all, you may want to work on the pace of your insight and clarity, because sometimes we can overwhelm ourselves, especially if we have been grown up with narcissistic parents, grown up as adult children of alcoholics. We can overwhelm ourselves, so we want to be careful about that overwhelming and take our recovery slowly but deliberately. And then second of all, if we begin to get more angry and depressed, then we want to see how is that anger and depression serving as a dynamic or force to keep us in denial. In other words, if I give up my anger, let me back up. One of the things we can do with anger and depression is see how it functions in our life. Who gets the benefit of the anger and depression? And how does that serve to keep us in an immature place? I also think it's possible for us to work on reducing our anger by owning it, working on letting it go. And of course, depression has always been talked of as anger gone inward. And so that can be a part of that anger that we are experiencing. Let me see here. And I think there is a lot of anger that comes along with recovery. And so you want to be very aware that recovery has anger that can be hidden for a long time, things we haven't seen. We also want to be careful when we are angry or in depression that we watch how we interact with family of origin, with spouses, and with others, that we want to become aware of how that process is working in us so that we begin to walk in a mature way. How would our mature self deal with our anger and depression? We can ask that question, and I have a video that talks about what would Betty do. Betty is somebody who's outside of us and neutral and mature. How would that part of us deal with our anger and depression? Let's see, we got cutting off, we got, here's one, can you talk about self-abandonment? Oh, I think that's a very good, I think Rinda has come in to join us,
Okay.
and it's great to see her. And talk more about self-abandonment. Self-abandonment is something we do when we are rejecting ourselves or continuing the pattern that we have internalized from our family of origin or narcissistic parent or a narcissistic partner, that we have internalized that negative abandoning process. We internalize it, we turn it on ourselves, and then we find ourselves repeating that process, and that's called self-abandonment, where I put myself down, I don't accept myself, I don't want to see reality, I stay in denial. That's self-abandonment. Also acting out with drugs, alcohol, codependency, relationships, gambling, religion, toxic, all kinds of things, behaviors are self-abandonment. In fact, I was just reading here, when we don't protect ourselves, we create, when we do not utilize self-protection, we then create more self-abandonment. When we don't hold to boundaries, that's self-abandonment. When we don't set limits in any way, that's self-abandonment. When we don't collect allies or support or help from healthy others, that's self-abandonment. When we say no and don't mean it, that's self-abandonment. When we continue to participate in the games that others play, narcissists and others as well, or parents, or our family of origin. And I see Joan has joined. Hi, Joan. I'm glad you could join us tonight. Those are some examples of self-abandonment. Let's see. When we utilize others as our authority rather than ourselves, that's self-abandonment. When we overcare, over-empathize, over-sympathize, over-function, those are ways in which we abandon self. So I hope those are some ways in which you might understand self-abandonment. And if you don't stand up for you, if you don't love you, then we have really abandoned you. We have abandoned ourselves. And I think that's very important to focus on that and continue to work on the ways in which we abandon ourselves. Oh, we've got lots of questions. I figured we'd have a lot coming in, and now we do. I was worried thinking we wouldn't have any questions. Well, we got a whole ton of them now. Rinda, that's all your fault. I've got to blame her. I got to blame somebody. Ooh, this might be a good question, though you might not like my answer. And that's okay, because an answer you don't like may be an answer that helps you get out of the box of the thinking that you're in. So not always do we want the answers that we get, because we may need answers that do not fit our current paradigm. And so we may feel it as an answer I don't like. The best answers I ever got from therapists, coaches, and people who have helped me as people who have helped me the most are often those are the answers I didn't like. If somebody's going to give me all the answers I just like, I may not be going anywhere, and I may maintain the status quo. Amelia Jane asked, why do narcissists and stalkers vacillate between love and hatred for the same target? What's the best way to stop seeking validation from toxic people like this? I don't know there is the best way to do it. There are ways in which we can begin to reduce our need for validation from toxic folks and toxic people. And I believe that we can begin to reduce that seeking of that validation by working on self-validation, because that reduces the need for validation from others, and often that will include toxic folks. Because if we have a need for validation, by golly, we're going to find somebody who will validate us, but then often that becomes a toxic process or a toxic pattern. So when we lack self-validation, we're going to be looking for it. And when we're looking for it, we're going to find it, but we're going to find it with people who may not have our best interest in heart, not consciously, but it may be their unconscious process as a cluster B type of relationship, or people who may not have our own self-interest in mind. I have a video talking about stop looking for love and approval. That's a video I made up in Chicago, and that has been a popular video you might take a look at, so that we can reduce that need for validation from toxic people, such as narcissists and stalkers and folks like that, because they will swing the pendulum back and forth between love bombing and discarding or hatred, and they'll move that pendulum back and forth between those, and we will just ride that pendulum with them if we do not have self-acceptance, self-validation, etc. I hope that helps a little bit, Amelia Jane. That may not be the answer, the whole answer, but that's maybe a helpful partial answer for you. Let's see here. This is a great question, and this might be a good one to talk about just a little bit. Do you think cutting off from a narcissist is the same as emotional cutoff? No. And it's from ET, and let me share with you about, there are different terms, and maybe I should do a little glossary discussion. When someone goes no contact with a narcissist, that is not emotional cutoff. Emotional cutoff is done out of immaturity and our own immaturity, and it's an immature process. No contact is a mature process that we do as adults, because someone is toxic or will not respect our boundaries. So I don't think that no contact and cutting off is the same thing. Cutting off is an internal emotional process. Going no contact is an adult, mature behavioral process we do with someone who does not respect our boundaries, who does not accept us, and cannot deal with us as a mature adult. And narcissists cannot do that. And so it's not an unhealthy process of cutting off by going no contact with someone who is narcissistic. Oops. Let's see here. Okay, let me take a look. Here's a good question too. Ginger asks, is self-abandonment the same as self-sabotage? Well, self-abandonment will always sabotage ourselves. And so we do want to be very aware of our self-sabotage and self-abandonment and work on how we do those things. That's a pattern that we do in our life, and it's good to explore the what's the benefits of continuing to do it, and what are the downsides if we stop it. Those are very good questions about self-abandonment and self-sabotage. That will help us reduce sabotaging ourselves. And then here is a question about, could you give us, MRLG says, could you give us some advice on how to use social media wisely when being harassed and stalked by a narcissist? I may not be the expert on social media or how to use it wisely. I do think if you are being harassed or stalked by a narcissist, then you may want to reduce your footprint on social media. Sometimes it's good to take a break. You know that social media is not the same thing as having a life. I believe in social media. I think social media can be great, and social media can be very useful tools, but they're not the same thing as having a life. And if you've got some folks who are stalking you or are abusing you, I mean, certainly you can block them. You can take them off YouTube, Facebook. Those are not people that you have to continue to utilize in your social media. We do have some control over our social media. And I would utilize those blocks that we have, whether it be WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube, all of those kinds of things. You can just say no to them. Let's see here. Soren, that's a good question. I might be able to help a little bit with that one. How do I learn to be single well? I have a yearning to be with another person, but want to get me right first. Any thoughts would be appreciative. Well, I have a few thoughts, maybe not the whole answer to that, but maybe this would be useful to you. I remember when I was a pastor, I did friendship workshops and being single workshops and seminars for churches and folks who were single. And there was a good author, Susan Muto, M-U-T-O, and she was a person who did some good writing about being single. and the dynamics of being single. And I would advise you might take a look at her writings. Now, they tend to be from a Christian or spiritual background, but whether you are a Christian or spiritual or religious, her advice and her coaching would be a real help in that area. Susan Muto, M-U-T-O. And she also would do spiritual guidance and work with Adrian Van Kaem, who was an excellent writer in that area. But I think Susan Muto might have some really good, mature books on friendship and singleness. Hope that helps, Soren. And this is a good question. This is Carla, and she writes, I'm trying to validate me. How do we validate ourselves? You know, I love those how questions, and I know I drive people crazy with that because how questions are usually not about how. Though I'm for coaching, helps, therapy, and getting input from other people, I'm not rejecting those at all. Those are very important tools for us. When we talk about how do we validate ourselves, often it's a question of when versus a question of how. And many times we ask the how question when we haven't answered the when question. When are you going to begin to validate yourself? It's a when question. And it's perfectly okay to not be ready. And that's why I help people with the work of owning the fact that I'm not ready to validate myself. And if we can own the fact that we are not ready and self-accept the fact that we are not ready, that's the beginning of self-validation. That is a validating of ourselves. But oftentimes we don't want to do that work. And so the when is a very important question. I do understand that there may be ways that we can begin to learn to validate ourselves. One way would be reducing overfunctioning is a way of validating ourselves. And are you ready, which is the when question, to begin to stop overfunctioning? And oftentimes we're not ready to reduce that overfunctioning, but we'll ask the question, how do we do that? But we're not ready to do it, but we will ask the question of how. And I've done that. I have asked that question many times. I was thankful that the coaches and therapists from my past were willing to say, well, let's work on your unreadiness for that. That can certainly help you grow because that's where you are at. And so when we accept the fact that we are not ready to validate ourselves, which we may not be, and what would be the downsides if we did validate ourselves? Who would be affected by that? And how would that affect us in a negative way? So I hope that might help a little bit, Carla. That's not easy. It is simple, but not easy. And thank you for that question. I appreciate that. Let's see here. What if, Joan asked this question. What if you get caught in the crosshairs of those subtle remarks that are made? How do we be a little more aware at the time that is happening? Maybe rewording that question would help me a little more. I'm not sure I know exactly, because I think we're talking about increasing our self-awareness. On a live broadcast today, I was watching today, and Yitz Goldberg was doing a live broadcast with another coach today, and they were asking those questions of how do we become more aware? And that's a very good question. And one of the questions I ask folks is, when did you learn to be unaware? That is a good place to start. Where did I learn to be unaware of those things? And what would be the downsides if I became more aware? Which I think are very good questions that we can ask ourselves. Tiffany asked a question. Over the years, I've married 3 narcissists, not knowing how or why. I'm worn out now. I'm just tired and don't want to be in a relationship, even if it was a healthy relationship. And she asked, is that bad? That's a great question. And I believe that that question may come out of the sense of having been in poor relationships, or having attracted narcissistic, or being in narcissistic relationships. And the I certainly don't think it's bad. I think it may be where you are, Tiffany, and I'm always very hesitant to say where you are is bad, because where we are is not bad, it's just where we are. And so that's the beginning of self-acceptance, that this is where I am. I don't want to be in any relationship, even a healthy one. There's nothing wrong with that. That's where you are. And if we begin to accept ourselves that that's where we are, because we've been abused, misused, ill-used by narcissists or unhealthy relationships, that it could be helpful to begin to focus on you, Tiffany, and begin to focus on your relationship with you, which will help you to find better relationships in the future when you are ready. So our first relationship focus is us. And especially if we've been in unhealthy marriages, relationships, narcissistic relationships, that the beginning of getting out of that is to begin to focus on your relationship with you. So I don't think that's bad. I don't think that's bad at all. Are these old questions or newer ones? Or that's fine. Let me take a drink of my diet root beer. I need to moisten my throat and mouth just a little bit. That feels better. I wanted to mention something while folks are sending some more questions. There is a good quote. Thanks, Renda. Let's see here. I wanted to mention. Oh, there it is. And I like, especially Tiffany's questions and some of the other questions relate to this quote. And I'm going to resort to the powerful and important wisdom and philosophy of the Wizard of Oz. And especially the good philosopher, coach, therapist, and helper of Glinda, the Good Witch of the North, I'm sure many of you have watched The Wizard of Oz. And she says to who's in The Wizard of Oz? Who's the Dorothy?
Dorothy. Toto.
I've just had a brain freeze. She says to Dorothy, "You've always had the power. You just had to learn it for yourself." So many people have asked me, where do I get the power? How do I get the power? You've always had the power. We just learn it for ourselves. We have always had the power to not abandon ourselves. We have always had the power to not be codependent. We've always had the power to be self-differentiated. We've always had the power to have a good relationship with ourselves. We just have not learned it for ourselves yet. So the power is there. And I like that process of people have asked me, how do I trust myself? How do I trust my gut? Of course, I wouldn't trust everything about your gut. I would learn to begin to build an informed gut. And that might be of help to you, to inform your gut so that you will have a strong gut to trust. And I think Glinda, the Good Witch of the North, has some good things to say. That the power is there. It's for us to learn about ourselves. Soren has a question, and I can maybe talk about Sylvia's question too. What are the main tenets of a healthy relationship within ourselves? What does a healthy relationship with ourselves look like? Does it involve going out and doing things we want? Is it more than that? Yes, I would say it is more than that. Having a good relationship with ourselves begins with the process of learning what a healthy or self-differentiated or healthy self is, which is why I've recommended the books by Jenny Brown, by Andrea Shera, by Harriet Lerner, by Roberta Gilbert, and by other folks who talk about what a healthy self-relationship is. And so I think there is having that healthy healthy relationship with yourself. The more we read about it, the more we learn about it, the better we do it. Thank you, Soren. Now, when you talk about healthy, what are the main tenets? I believe that would include having a relationship in which we learn to balance the forces of togetherness and separateness, reducing triangulation, self-love, self-acceptance, self-differentiation, which is the process of being who you are, which may be different than other people. I am me. I am not you. That is a healthy beginning or healthy tenet to having a relationship with yourself. And I think that it may be simple, it's not easy. I am oftentimes telling folks or suggesting to folks that one of the best ways to begin to relate to other people is to be you, not them. And that may include saying, well, I hear what you're saying, but that's not how I see it. I see what you want, and I know that what you would like, but that's not what I may want. That may not be what I like. And so we are beginning to use that language of differentiation. That's a process of having or a tenet of having a healthy relationship with ourselves. We no longer wish to change others. We are beginning to assert or to be ourselves. I am me. And that we are informing other people about that. And that informing is a calm, assertive process of self-love and having a relationship with me. I have a question, which is a good one, and I'll come back to your question, Sylvia, too. This question is, how do you differentiate projection from truth? Knowing what's yours and what is the other person's issue? That's a very good question. We could probably do a whole broadcast on that one. And maybe Rinda could explain it better than me, or Mark could explain it better than me. But I will try to answer that. So let's talk about that process. And I think that, well, first of all, if we begin to work on self-differentiation, that is the process of learning about where I begin and where you end and you begin. And for me to identify and to see that. With differentiating between projection and the truth, I think about when I work on being and knowing me and owning and accepting me, then projection occurs when someone is forcing me to de-self. When I de-self, then there's usually, and when I feel like I need to de-self, then typically projection is occurring. Because I don't need to de-self. When someone is not projecting, they don't need me to de-self. When they need me to de-self, then there's usually projection occurring. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's a way that I think about that in my own imperfect way. And because I don't want to de-self, and projection requires that. Let me take another drink here. Sylvia had a good question that I wanted to mention or answer or talk about. She says, why is it all so complicated? Why can't we just live a life and just live and let live? It's exhausting. You know, I think that's a very good question. Though life is not black or white, and life is very gray, unfortunately, and complicated, it is the reason why I feel people cannot live or live by the live and let live tenet is because they have not worked on themselves and their own self-differentiation, which includes me, because I also know that I have a hard time with living and let living by others. I typically want to change others. And I definitely want to change others when I have not accepted myself. That's when I want to change others and need to change others, because I'm not okay with me. So I need you to change so that I can more accept me. Only that doesn't work. And so it is important that we begin to work on caring and accepting and loving ourselves, and being ourselves. Then it becomes less exhaustive. I do know about that exhaustion, for sure, Sylvia. Thank you very much for your question. Which one would be the best here? Of this one or this one? Doesn't matter. Let's take a look at these. Got another questions coming in. Let's take a look here. Ooh. Yes. Yeah. Here's one. Okay. Feeling safe is one of the first things on Maslow's pyramid of needs, and that's true. We do need to feel safe. You know who's responsible for your safety? You. And that's very important for us to work on finding safety and protection for ourselves. That is a very important work that we do. And it's very important that we feel safe so that we can work on self. It is not easy to do when we have toxicity that is bombarding us. So we do need to find safety and find a safe place for us and the relationships that we're in. Thank you. Is it Rella? R-E-L-L-A? Thank you, Rella. Hope has a question. How do I leave when my kids have been told I am breaking up the family? I'm ruining their lives by seeking a divorce. And I'm not sure I know exactly. There's a lot of stuff in there. By seeking a divorce, your kids, Hope, are saying or accusing you of breaking up the family and ruining their lives. Well, number one, it would depend on how old the kids are in this situation. First of all, I don't know that you're that powerful to do that. And I usually will share with people, I don't have the power to ruin your life. Now, if they're dependent children, then I want to do everything I can do to help them be whole, healthy, happy children. And that by seeking a divorce, and again, I don't know all your situation by any means, but I usually try to let people know, whether it be kids or estranged husband or relationship, that I'm not quite that powerful. I need to do things that are best for me, not in a selfish way, but in a self-differentiated way. That's not selfishness. Other people who are unhappy with our decisions will call us unhealthy, unhappy, powerful, breaking up the world and the universe, and that is a ruse and a myth. I don't have that kind of power. I hope that helps. Hope. And again, I don't know all of your situation. I'm sorry you're going through that struggle. Let's see here. Let's see here. Let's take a look here. Oh, there's a lot of good questions here. Joan asked a question. How can I be more aware when I'm in the presence of someone I trusted and now I am seeing his remarks as abusive and I woke up to his inappropriateness? Well, awareness is always a double-edged sword. Let's see here. How can I be more aware when I'm in the presence of someone I trusted and now I'm seeing his remarks? Well, it sounds like you are becoming more aware when you see someone who has been abusive and now you see inappropriateness. I think that is one of the things about self-differentiation and self-awareness that is very important, that we begin to see, whether from relationships or personal relationships, or whether we, family members, co-workers, bosses, partners, spouses, that we become aware of and begin to resolve our naivety about seeing remarks as abusive and inappropriate. And I think I like to use the process of self-differentiation to deal with abusive and inappropriate comments. First of all, I may share with them, I feel that is abusive and inappropriate when you share comments like that. Would you please stop? So I make a request or I act. I begin to realize that, hey, these things have not been very nice. I don't like these comments or inappropriateness. And so I can share that with someone and they can say, well, oftentimes people will call us overly sensitive. And they'll say, oh, well, you're just being overly sensitive. And I always like to be able to share with them that I don't agree or I don't see it that way. I'm sorry, I don't agree, and I don't see it that way. I understand that you may see it as me being overly sensitive, but I don't. And that I would appreciate it if you would not make those comments or not be inappropriate in that way. And if you cannot seem to do that, then I will have to make decisions about my relationship and how I interact with you. And that I certainly have a right to do that. I am an adult, just as you are an adult. You don't have to see it my way, but I do ask you to behave in a certain way as you interact with me. I hope that's a help, Joan. someone betrays my trust over and over. Kelly, you ask an interesting question. What do I do when someone betrays my trust over and over? I think it would be important to take a look at, why do you give someone the power to betray your trust over and over? You may want to work on not making yourself vulnerable to them so that they can betray your trust over and over. You may have been too generous with your trust. And we can be too generous with our trust. Codependents do that. Adult children of alcoholics do that. Adult children of narcissists will do that. And they will betray, or they will be too vulnerable in their trusting when they do. And so we may want to watch how generous we are with our trust. Thanks, Kelly. Let's see here. Okay. And this is a good question. This is from also MRLG. And I appreciate everyone tonight who's sharing. I'm knocking my microphone. I appreciate everyone who's sharing questions and asking questions tonight and participating in the conversation that we have. I appreciate that. I want to thank you for those questions tonight. MRLG asks, how do I handle a combination of gaslighting, pathological lying, defamation, and false accusations? Any suggestion on what to do about this? I have a few that might be of help. First of all, well, it sounds like kind of that smear campaign kind of problem that you may be experiencing, where someone's gaslighting, lying, defamation, false accusations. First of all, I like to watch and be careful how much that triggers my reactivity, because we want to reduce our reactivity when someone does those things. People will do those things. People all around us will do those things. And so we do accept the understanding that that will and can happen. And that it depends on who that person is. Whether, I don't know if that's a friend or a spouse or an acquaintance or who is doing that, because that might change, what advice I might have. But when someone is off doing a smear campaign with us and defaming us, false accusations, that we turn inward and take a look at, do we see it the same way as them? No. They are gaslighting. They are pathologically lying. They are defaming, and they are making false accusations. If it is very difficult to get someone to stop doing that. So what I like to work on is, how can I be less reactive to their madness? There's madness all around us and all over in the world. How can I be less reactive to their madness? Because I can't change their madness. I can only change me. And what do I need to do to reduce how those things cause reactivity within me? And I many times, also if they're doing a smear campaign and other people are affected by that, then they are affected by that to their peril. I think I've mentioned that it is perilous when someone accepts gaslighting and pathological lying and defamation and false accusations, it's perilous for them to do that. And I will let people know that it's very perilous for them to do that. I don't accept lying and defamation and false accusations because I know that's what they are. So I understand when that is happening. And what I hope to do is to have a self barrier and a self acceptance barrier, that when those things are happening, they come in and they hit my sense of self, which I know I don't accept those things, and then they fall off. They can only go in so far and drop down. I don't accept them as a part of myself. It's not reality and it's not true. If someone wants to do that and wants to be crazy, they can. I think I talked about that maybe the last time when I talked about Coca-Cola. That when someone is lying, gaslighting, defaming, and falsely accusing, that's the same thing as someone calling me a Coca-Cola. And that's how crazy it is. It's all craziness. They might as well be saying, Jerry, don't you know you're a Coca-Cola? No, I am not. And it sounds like you're accusing me of being a Coca-Cola. If you choose to think that way, you may, but that's not who I am. I'm not a Coke. I'm Jerry. And if you continue to call me a Coca-Cola, or accuse me of being a Coca-Cola, or you lie about me being a Coca-Cola, or you gaslight me saying you're not a person, you're a Coca-Cola, then you can do that all you want. It's just crazy. And so you're free to do that, but it is Coca-Cola thinking, and I have no control over your Coca-Cola thinking. Now, if other people want to believe that I'm a Coca-Cola, I'm not in control of their Coca-Cola thinking either. And so I think of that Coca-Cola thinking is what I do. I think you're absolutely right. That story reminds me of a 12-step and someone telling me I'm a chair. That's right. You're not a chair. It's impossible. And it's impossible for me to be a chair or be a Coca-Cola. I can't be. If they want to think that way, they can. And they have every right to. Everyone in the world has every right to their own opinion. But you know what? I do too. And I'm not a Coca-Cola. I don't believe I'm a Coca-Cola. So you can lie, defame, gaslight all you want, but that's just a bent reality. If you want to bend reality, you can bend reality all you want. Go for it. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it works for you. But my hunch is if you're bending reality about me, you're probably bending reality about everyone around you. And most of all, you're bending reality about you. And that is very dangerous, harmful, and unhealthy. So, if you want to do that, you can. But I'm going to try to stay on the reality train the best that I can. Jane asked, how do I stop thinking about negativity from the past? Well, you can work on stopping thinking negatively about the past. I like to think about understanding my negativity from the past, and I like to heal the past, if at all possible. I also want to think about when will I be ready to stop thinking negatively about the past? And that you might want to think about or to accept the fact that I'm not ready to stop thinking about negativity from the past. You may not be ready. What are the downsides if you stop thinking negatively about the past? There may be downsides. There probably are downsides. And that's why we keep thinking negatively about the past. I hope that helps, Jane. Let's see. Let's see here. Can you got that one sometimes? Let me take a drink here. Wet my whistle just a little bit. We've got about 10 minutes to go. I wanted to alert you to that. We've got about 10 minutes. I want to remind you that Renda Smith, life coach and a social work person, is going to be LSW is going to be doing the broadcast 2 weeks from tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I wanted to remind you of that so you are aware. And you can find her on Renspire, her website. Is that right? And I also want to say you can find me on my website, which is www.jerrywiserelationshipsystems.com. You can find me there and on YouTube and on Facebook under the same name. Jackie, I hear your question. I wonder if you could resend it a little differently. What's the big secret? And says, what's the big secret? If your spouse keeps betraying your trust, and says, what's the big secret? See, I'm not sure I understand the question. I understand if your spouse keeps betraying your trust, and that's not good, and says, what's the big secret? I'm not sure if you could maybe rewrite that for me. Maybe I could help you with that a little bit more. I'm not sure. Let's see here. Well, Sylvia has a good question. Sometimes there is so much madness around us in the world, we end up not reacting. We end up not reacting to the point of pathology? Question mark. Well, I definitely think there's a lot of madness around in the world. There is no doubt about that. And you know, I don't know if you're asking, Sylvia, if could we end up not reacting to the point of pathology? In other words, that we don't react enough to the pathology around us. Maybe that may be what you're asking. Well, when I say non-reactivity, that doesn't mean we do nothing. Someone who is self-differentiated, someone who is choosing themselves and being a self, that doesn't mean they will not do anything or not be a participant in the world in a healthy way. I just don't want my reactivity to get in the way. I don't want my reactivity to get in the way of doing something that would be positive. about the craziness or the pathology or the madness all around me. I hope that helps a little, Sylvia. We've been going at it here for about an hour and a half. I think my brain is getting a little muddy. It sometimes can do that and get a little mushy. Melody asks, can you recommend some of your videos for finding a true self? Yeah, I've got about 130 some videos on YouTube. If you write to me at jerrywise5@gmail.com, I will send you a listing of all of my videos, and I think the topics and the titles of those videos would be helpful to you in and that there would be some helps to you for finding a true self in those videos. And I think they would apply to finding a true self in those videos. So please feel free to go ahead and to write me at jerrywise5@gmail.com. You're also very willing to do that. If I wasn't able to answer your question tonight, you can send that question to me directly at that video or at that email address, and I will do the best I can to help you with answering those questions. So please send those to me. There are times in which sometimes people will send very long emails, and it can be hard for me to get back with everybody and get back a good long answer. If I did that, I'd never be able to do anything else. If you want to send a short question to me, I'd be happy to answer the best I can. Also, some of those answers are in the videos as well. And you can take a look at, I think many times the videos, almost all the videos that I have done will talk about self-differentiation and being a true self. And virtually all the videos have that content in it. Let's see here. Oh, I mean, that's a good question too. Are we supposed to respond to the Coca-Cola thinking, or respond to the Coca-Cola or Gray Rock? In particular, in front of my kids, because they think I'm crazy because my husband has told them that for years, that I've been crazy. Well, I mean, there's a lot in that. I think you're right. If having a personal relationship with your children, an authentic personal relationship with them, will communicate a lot about your healthiness to them, regardless of what your husband have been saying for years. And that's a very complicated situation. I would recommend you work with a good therapist or a good coach, Mark, Renda, myself, in helping you with that situation and that marital difficulty that you have, and how you deal with your children. I'm not sure I know how old your children are. That can make a difference. Not always is it helpful to respond to the Coca-Cola thinking. You're right. Gray Rock or no response can be the right response. If someone is gaslighting, defaming, lying, and those kinds of things, no response can be the best response if they're unwilling to listen to you or to listen to reality. do I do when someone betrays? If your spouse keeps betraying your trust, how much? Ooh, okay. Now I'm more with you, Jackie. What do I do when someone betrays my trust, betrays my trust over and over? And that if your spouse keeps betraying your trust and says, "What's the big secret?" Now I understand your question. And telling your spouse something in confidence, and he shares it with others and says, "What's the big secret?" I think that's very important. And that would make sense. And I know a little more what you're asking now. If I am sharing with a spouse something in confidence and he breaks that confidence, then he no longer has the right to say, "What's the big secret?" You've agreed to the confidence, and I need that confidence to share with you this information. Instead of giving you a long answer about that tonight, Jackie or Kelly, here's what I would recommend. Take a look at the book Love Busters by, what's his name? I know his name. Haley? I'm trying to think, but it's Love Busters is the name of the book. And that what's so very important is the policy of mutual agreement, that you do not share with others things that we have shared in confidence, and that I would certainly be hesitant to share with my spouse things that I think he might or she might share with other people. That's a very big love buster rule. You are breaking that rule. And I would take a look at love busting, because that busts the romantic love and deteriorates the relationship when someone shares with others things that you have shared in confidence with them. And when he says, "What's the big secret?" then what has happened to his empathy? What has happened to his making the relationship a priority, and not what he shares with other people that you have said the priority, but making the relationship a priority? Yours and his relationship is what's important. That's pretty, when he shares, I just read her comment. Willard Harley, right, Love Busters. I would take a look at that. If someone gets a kick out of sharing, that's not healthy. That feels a little non-empathetic and cluster B-ish if someone's doing that. I don't like, there should be no enjoyment in hurting a spouse. And I would have some real concerns about someone sharing that with others if it was shared in confidence. Now, again, I don't know the whole story and what's going on or what's happening, but yes, I would think that would be real problematic if someone is doing that. Because we should keep those confidences with our spouse. Well, we're going to have to end tonight. I appreciate all of you asking questions tonight, being a part of the community, and being a part of the question and answers process. I'm sure that I've not exhaustively answered your questions that you've asked. I wish I could exhaustively answer everybody's question tonight. It's questions that they've asked. It's difficult to do that. But at least I think this may be at least a beginning of answering some of those questions. I do want to thank you for joining me tonight, and thank you for being a part of the broadcast. You've been so kind to listen to me, even with the best that I can do tonight. It's been a long day. I wanted to share with you tonight some answers to some of your questions. There are plenty of books. Also, when you write to me at jerrywise5, the number 5, at gmail.com, I do send a list of readings and books that you can use to help you. I also send a whole listing of all of my videos. You can find those on Jerry Wise Relationship Systems YouTube channel also. I know Mark and Renda, Mark Smith and Renda Smith also have a number of resources that they will send you or be happy to send to you to help you. We do enjoy giving away what we have and the knowledge that we have. We want to give that to people. Now, Renda, Mark, and I all have to pay our bills, so we do ask people to pay for the coaching that they might obtain from us. Also, I know it can be very helpful for you to send donations as well, so that we can do these broadcasts and free videos for folks. I think I have that on my website as well. I again want to thank you for joining us tonight. I hope tonight has been a help to you. I want to thank Mark and Renda, who's helped me manage all the questions tonight. I wish I could have gotten to all the questions. I'll be back and I'll join the broadcast again. And I want to thank you for being joining us tonight. And I hope you have a great evening. And I hope you have, I'm getting tired. I'm pooped. Thank you all. You have a great night.